Ticks. Nobody likes them. Creepy, crawly, 8-legged, smaller than you'd expect. They find you in the woods. And of course, we know they also carry Lyme disease. That's right, the characteristic bullseye red rash. And of course, it is treatable if you know you've got it. The problem is, many don't. Some don't get the rash. Some never see the tick. While on vacation on Martha's Vineyard, Kris Newby was bitten by an unseen tick. It changed her life forever, pulling her into an illness that no doctor seemed to be able to diagnose, and it took years to recover. She became one of 300,000 Americans who are afflicted with Lyme disease every year. But she wanted to know more. Just where did this disease come from? Would it surprise you to know that maybe, just maybe, it's part of a bug-borne bioweapons program that happened during the Cold War? Is it possible that the Lyme disease epidemic was started by a military experiment gone wrong? Welcome all of you to season 4. I saw that there was a countdown happening. There was excitement. People may have liked the new intro claymation a little bit, feels like. And I did see someone was very excited about Davy and the Sax. Davy, I feel like the Sax is gonna have to make, a new appearance this year, don't you think?
I think I'm gonna have to find another sketch, another jazzy sketch to come up with, and we'll play some more saxophone for you. We'll get that going.
I think it's time. Yeah. Well, without further ado, the wonderful first author of season 4 is with us today, and it's Kris Newby. Nothing like a good pause before that explosion.
I love that.
Nailed it.
Black fog. Perfect.
Yeah, it's we like to think of it as squidding, just
Squidding.
given our squiddiness that we have. By the way, y'all, I built all those new sets to look like my office. So I figured that way the transition was a little easier. You're like, oh, I know where we are now. I know, we're good. I gave you different wallpaper though, Davey.
That's true. That's fair. You know what? This wall needs to be painted anyway, so. But the time and care, let me tell you, peculiars, the time and care that Brandy puts into those claymation videos, it is exquisite. It is exquisite. It's so well done. Come on.
I was doing it in I started this in October, and I kept gluing my fingers together, trying to make the little bookshelf. And yeah, that's never good. But let's talk about Kris Newby and ticks, because I was overwhelmed by how interesting and fascinating and upsetting this book is. And I'd also read Megan O'Rourke's Invisible Kingdom. She had Lyme disease as well, undiagnosed. And so there were two different things going on. I felt like on one hand, I'm like, wow, this terrible illness and being gaslighted by doctors, who's psychosomatic couples illness, you were told at one point, right? But also military experiments, right? And I did say military experiments go wrong, and Christy said military experiments never go wrong, and that's a ouch. You're right. So phew, what a ride.
Yeah, I mean, my husband and I, we went to a vacation in Martha's Vineyard with our 2 middle school boys, and we were bitten by unseen ticks, and it changed my life forever. I was a science writer before in
Mm-hmm.
Silicon Valley, and all of a sudden I became a medical science writer for survival. I mean, to save my
Mm-hmm.
family, I would say.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you had children to take care of. They didn't get it though, right?
They didn't. They were playing in the surf, so they didn't go into the swishy grass
The
where
swishy grass.
laying on the top of the blades and wait for you to go by and then grab you. And
Yeah, no, it's just an amazing. I was super impressed. Usually we start the show by me saying, "What gave you the idea for the book?" Kind of don't need to do that with this one. I feel like we know. We know. But I will say this. It's definitely taken your writing in a slightly new direction, in the sense that, it's one thing to write about science as we mean science to happen. It's another thing where you have interventions that actually interrupt, like use science, but also interrupt its sort of ethical structure, and I wonder, do you find that you look at science writing differently after having written this book? I'm just curious.
well, I worked at Stanford as science writing for 10 years, and there we learned a set of rules where you don't exaggerate discoveries, because
Mm-hmm.
most things that come out of university aren't some great, like we cured cancer. It's just incremental
Right.
steps. But yes, now I look at science writing different. I mean, I feel like it was somewhat pure at Stanford, but now articles come out and I wonder, is this from a pharmaceutical company? Do they have an agenda? Did they pay this freelancer to present their point of view on a drug?
Right. Yeah. Well, and because it happens, and you literally can't tell. I get press releases myself. So I'm also a science writer, and you'll get the press releases from like, "Hey, look at this amazing new thing that just came out. You might want to write an article about it." And I look at it and I'm like, the person who sent it to me is also the person who's, marketing it and all that kind of thing. And so even as a writer, I feel like I have to constantly be doing all this background work.
Yeah.
Sadie just said, and I guess maybe I missed this. She said not just Kris and her husband, also your mom.
Yes. She was living in Northern Virginia, and she got a tick bite, the classic bullseye rash, diagnosed
Mm-hmm.
at Bethesda Naval Hospital. It was cured with a short dose of doxy because she got it fast. But then she went to Italy and got some sort of tick sprue, and it was a serious neurological set. We don't know exactly what combination of tick-borne infection she had, but it eventually led to dementia.
Oh, yeah. And how much, you raise questions, and I know that this isn't where you're going necessarily, but it raises questions, and I start to think of all the other illnesses, Legionnaire's disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, all these things, and you start wondering, are there other, if you really had all the facts, like how many of these are just weird natural anomalies, and how many of them are happening because someone somewhere wanted that to happen? I mean, it's scary to look back now. Like I look at everything. After reading your book, I literally became so suspicious of everything. And of course with COVID, you already have people making those suggestions and comments about things escaping from a lab. Sonia here, she said Amy 10 had undiagnosed Lyme disease. I didn't realize that. She talks about it too. I spent
an afternoon with Amy.
Did you really?
When I worked on that documentary Under Our Skin, which is about the politics and science of Lyme disease. So she has a short cameo in that, but
okay.
She talks about the sort of dementia psychosis she had when she was in the depths of Lyme disease. She got it upstate New York. She had a house up there, and it was about the time 9/11 happened, and she said she would see hallucinations of like Arab terrorists in her room, and the only way she knew if they were real is she'd send her dogs out, and they would bark if it was real.
Oh gosh, yeah, geez.
So it's a brain infection. I mean, a lot of the tick-borne diseases are brain infections, and depending on where the inflammation is, you can behave very strangely.
Yeah. And So I do not have Lyme disease. However, I have a neurological. They thought it was epilepsy for a while. It turns out to be migraine related, where I too have occasionally had. I used to have sort of seizures that would cause hallucinations. And there is something just when you know, like part of you is in your right mind going, some of that's not real. And if you tell people, everyone just goes, no, you must be, there's such a stigma about your brain. There's such a stigma about anything going on with your brain.
Yeah, well, I think with tick-borne diseases, it depends on what pathogens were transmitted in the tick bite and then where the inflammation happens. So, and then also it's a waxing and waning kind of infection. So the pains and the problems will move around your body. So when you go in to see a doctor, it's just like, oh, this is a hypochondriac. They just need attention. So that's the hard part about it. And we don't have good tests for it right now. The tests still first week. And then later on, it's just hit or miss whether they're accurate. Because some of the sickest people, these are antibody tests. They're 30 years old. And if you have a compromised immune system, your antibodies might be clumped up and they won't be measured on the tests. Or it's so suppressed, it doesn't show up in the tests.
Yeah, I'm just putting up several comments here. For those of you who are on the podcast, there's been several people in the feed talking about tick areas. So upstate New York, Toronto. There's some people talking about central New York and Syracuse also having a lot of ticks. And we spend time out of doors. It's not easy to know exactly how to protect yourself. I'm in Ohio, and we have a lot of ticks. We don't have as many of the black-legged ticks, but we do have ticks. They carry disease.
Yes, as a dog, as a dog owner, I feel like this month is my month because we got two kind of dog related books. But yeah, we have a tick graveyard in our house. We have a medicine container filled with rubbing alcohol, and it's literally we come in and we pull them off the dog. If you have a dog, get the tick tornado, a good tool to twist and get them right off. But yeah,
and of course those are the ticks battle. You see, right?
Yeah.
I put up one picture, but I actually saw. Is it true that some of them are as small as poppy seeds and they can still carry the disease? Is that?
Yeah, those are the nymphs.
Crazy.
They're yeah, and then there's a new tick in town. It's the Lone Star, which is crawling northward from below the Mason-Dixon line, and they have very crude eyes on their little epaulets, and they swarm. They don't just sit on a piece of grass; they swarm.
Oh, nice. That sounds.
They can see you.
Because they have eyes. Oh, great. That's just what I wanted to know there, Kris. We're all going to sleep really well. Everyone's going to, if we don't end this show with all of you being kind of like itchy, then I think we've done it wrong. Anthro Girl said, she said, I feel like Lyme isn't well understood or taken seriously by doctors. And, and long Lyme is a whole other thing that no one really pays attention to. I was wondering, like, is there a difference between how people talk or deal with what do you call it? The first infection versus say you've had it for a long time.
Yeah. So everybody agrees that acute Lyme, if you treat it quickly, you can get rid of it. But very few people, not very few, but maybe 50% of the people don't catch it early. They don't see the rash. It's on the back of their body or under their hairline. And the test, like I said, in the beginning, it doesn't work in the first month when you can cure it. Later on, it's hit or miss, maybe as good as a coin flip, really. And a lot of physicians won't treat unless you get a positive test, not knowing the test is bad. And so that leads to a lot of people going on to get chronic Lyme disease. And then, like I said, the symptoms move around your body. They're just crazy. And CDC has a list of symptoms that are outdated.
Right.
They're not actively tracking the symptoms. Plus, if you have co-infections, like if you have babesiosis, which is a malaria-like disease with Lyme disease, it's a certain set of symptoms. If you have Bartonella, which makes you a little bit crazy, it can cause cat scratch disease. It's a different set of symptoms. So busy physicians who are busier than ever because of COVID.
Obviously, yeah. Catherine said she got the bullseye rash, had the tick, and was still misdiagnosed because it was a Slovak tick. So the titer was equivocal. So, it's even when you have all of the things and you think, aha, the red X right there, you might not get what you need.
Yeah.
Sonia asks, do you feel that the medical world is starting to recognize that Lyme disease is more prevalent, or is there still a misinformation campaign where the symptoms are dismissed? It sounds like there still is, from what you say about them not really keeping up on symptoms or differentiations.
Yeah, the big thing is CDC was trying to suppress the numbers. And I'm not 100% sure why, but for years they said there was only 30,000 cases, somewhere between 30,000 and 300,000.
Oh, wow.
And it's because their reporting system is so cumbersome and bureaucratic. Like you go to your doctor and you get a positive test. They're supposed to send it into their county CDC office, and then it gets to the state level, and then it gets to the national level, and then there's just dropout along the way.
Yeah.
And also the test, the bar for reporting is super high.
Right.
And so about 4 years ago, the CDC actually got some real bioinformaticists in on it, and they got the actual records from the insurance companies, like how many people say they have Lyme disease according to their doctors. And what they found, it's like nearly 500,000 cases a year. There's reported cases in every state. So
every state,
just not
all of them.
Yeah.
Oh, fun. Is it in Hawaii too?
Fair, CDC's reporting is they report it where you live, not where you got it.
Oh.
So it's one of the many problems with the way CDC has been treating Lyme disease. First of all, not very good symptoms on their website, supporting a 30-year-old old technology test that doesn't work. And it may or may, and then their rules say that, well, you have to be in an endemic, high incidence state to be diagnosed with it. But if they're doing a bad job of tracking,
then how do they have any idea?
And then the other problem is the tests only test for the East Coast version. And we've just discovered that there's West Coast versions of Lyme-like diseases that aren't picked up by the other. So it
makes you feel like there's no, it sort of makes you feel a little bit hopeless, right? You feel like there's no missing it. There's no getting away from it. Jennifer Pierce, we've actually been chatting back and forth about this ourselves. She's had a long-term neuralgia, etc. for many years. Long story short, docs say likely post-viral, but nobody can figure it out. And she says she deeply empathizes with your medical journey, and hopes you're healthy now, because it is such a difficult thing, and they don't take, it's so hard for people to know. And it seems like a bunch of different conditions as opposed to a single one.
Well, it's the co-infections. There's 20 sort of diseases that can cause from ticks that can cause human disease. So you just don't know what mix it is. And the last 30 years, people just say, oh, it's just Lyme. And so one thing my book brought out is a bunch of freaky new tick-borne diseases showed up around 1981, which is when Legionnaires showed up and around where AIDS showed up. So for whatever reason, the discoverer said it's only Lyme disease, and then everybody stopped looking in the ticks.
Yeah, interesting.
So now we have now scientists have better molecular analysis tools, and they're saying, oh, well, there is a lot of different diseases in ticks, and the combination is much worse than just Lyme, and we should start looking into this.
Yeah, and the scientists are saying it. But, is there funding backing it? Is the scientists can only do what there's funding to do. So I also wonder, do we know that they'll be able to actually look deeper at these things?
Recently, I did an analysis of 9 years of NIH funding for Lyme disease. And I was sort of shocked to find out that there's a desperate need. Well, diagnosis, we're stuck with a 30-year-old diagnosis. And for some reason, I think they spend like 16% of the budget, the whole budget, on antibody diagnosis that is just more Me Too of what we have now, rather than using DNA and high throughput molecular analysis tools. The most shocking thing was the current treatments that are recommended for Lyme disease have about a 30% failure rate. And in the last 9 years, the NIH has only spent less than 1% on exploring new treatments.
So they're likely to fail, but Oh well.
Yeah, and then all those
Good luck.
people who fail treatment, there's a huge pressure at large medical institutions not to overuse antibiotics. So they say once you've had
Right,
3 to
of
4 weeks
course.
of doxycycline, no more. And so those people go on to become chronically ill.
Because it takes so much longer. I mean, that was the thing that I thought was really interesting is the one size fits all approach that seems to have been, I suppose this is connected to the fact that they were like, it's just this. Therefore, there's one approach. And I suppose that is simpler. It's just wrong. Simple and wrong answers, of course. Sadie Simmons points out, she says, when partnered with women's non-white cis dude medical concerns being dismissed routinely, I'm sure there are many undiagnosed cases, especially since the symptoms vary from day to day. And that was something I found really interesting, both in your book and in Megan O'Rourke's book, about how varied your symptoms were even within a single person. And I was like, yours ran the gamut.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it starts out with straight flu-like symptoms. It would seem a lot like COVID. Crushing fatigue, headache, feels like there's a C-clamp on the back of your neck, can be gut problems. And then we were undiagnosed for a year, my husband and I, and it was the worst year ever because we would go to doctor after doctor, and the specialist would look at one part of your body. Oh, your gut.
Right.
Oh, your headaches. Or the infectious disease doctor, which is the worst. He said, "You don't have Lyme disease." So
that was handy. Yeah. Well, and the sort of gaslighting that ends up happening, the kind of and it is very. I know that women get taken less seriously than men do frequently, but just this concept that when you go in and go, well, everything seems to be wrong, but not all at the same time. They just look at you like you're making it up. Quickly, I just wanted to pop in. Anna Lopez Carr is here from Santa Barbara. She's in the middle of dealing with emergency responses to California floods, but she's like, I'm listening. And Anna and I have been talking a lot about these different conditions as well. Long COVID, long chronic Lyme. What do we do when people don't want to even take it seriously? And they don't want to take the infection seriously in the first place. Of course, they don't seem to want to take it seriously that you might have it chronically after the fact.
Yeah, and I think the long Lyme or the long COVID situation is even worse because now my husband has both. The fun pack.
Oh God.
The first time he went into the doctor to discuss his long COVID, I mean, he had it 2 years, no smell, no taste, and then all the fatigue, the brain fog.
Yeah.
Yeah, his primary care, because we moved to Utah, his response was, well, I'll sign you up for talk therapy.
Therapy.
Yeah. So even though there's a bunch of off-label drugs you can try for viruses or whatever.
Is that where you talk to the tick and forgive each other?
Talk therapy. Wow. That seems, I mean, there are psychological issues with having chronic illness. I have a chronic illness myself, and it's true, it does help to have support, but should be in addition to treatments for the actual symptoms and the disease itself. How's he doing? I mean, he can't catch a break.
Yeah, I would say we've stepped outside of the medical community, and so obviously you have this. Long COVID is inflammation of your vascular system, so you don't get adequate oxygen, and then there's this pesky spike protein that creates a lot of inflammation in your whole body. So he started doing low pressure hyperbaric, so he's getting more oxygen in his body. Feeling.
Yeah,
that's really helping. And then various immune system IV bombs. So periodically he goes in and gets doses of vitamin C and zinc, and that gives his immune system a boost. So I would say doing those two things, and then he was having cluster hub headaches and gabapentin installed. So he is getting better after almost 2.5 years. So that's
terrible. And I feel like there's so many of these stories, people who have, my friend she ended up having Lyme as well. She had it for 9 years before she was diagnosed. And they told her for a while they thought it was a foodborne illness because it seemed very much in her gut, but then she'd have all these other symptoms, and they basically said, well, these are psychological symptoms that you're having because you're upset about your gut. Like they didn't realize that it was actually like affecting her brain, and she was actually having inflammation in her brain. And she wasn't diagnosed until 9 years later, and at this point, she's so disabled by it that she can't. She can work, but she can't work like a regular 9 to 5 job. She, all of these different things. To be gaslit all that time, to go through all that expense, all that money, all the the paying for all of this medical care that doesn't end up helping, and then in the end, the answer is, well, I guess you're just disabled now. It just feels like that when you suffer from a chronic condition, especially something like Lyme disease, there's no real solution at the end. It doesn't seem like the happy ending quite ever happens the way we'd like. We'd like everybody to go, and now they're better, but.
Yeah, I think the US has put all their eggs in the vaccine basket and has short shrift the research on long COVID. But the numbers are getting to be so big, they can no longer ignore it. It's actually impacting our labor force.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I wonder if our labor shortage, especially in the service sector, is part of this long COVID thing, that we're just in denial. And we saw the same thing with Lyme disease. It's inconvenient for the insurance companies because it's expensive. You have to try a lot of things. Doctors are hesitant to try things that haven't been through a large randomized 5
Right, of course. Yeah.
And also, doctors have lost their freedom to use clinical judgment. They have shackled by the insurance companies and what people will reimburse, and their institutions that say, oh, don't try antibiotics because superbugs will happen, when actually the largest misuse of antibiotics happens in agriculture.
Yeah.
Antibiotics to livestock or fish farms every day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, yeah. Kristen Meston has a question. She said, the trip through liking Willy and then getting angry about bioweapons research to forgiving him a bit after you mentioned the military test participation. How did you choose to structure it this way? Because I think you're right. I think she's right. We all go on this like Willy journey.
Yeah. So Willy was the discoverer of Lyme disease. He was heralded by NIH as this great hero. And then in the course of doing the documentary Under Her Skin, actually a different documentarian said, yeah, I was in the bioweapons program for years, and we weaponized fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes to drop them on our enemies. So I thought that was really shocking. And I went to the evil side. Willy's evil. But then over the course of his life, you realize he had a lot of stressors that no one realized. He had a mentally ill wife, a lot of financial pressures. And in the end, he had a crisis of conscience for the things he did. When he was a young man, he was ambitious. He wanted to come to the United States.
Yeah.
And so, and then in the middle of the book, I find out my dad was involved with Agent Orange in Vietnam. So it just sort of made me feel like no one's black or white or black hat or bad, but people make stupid decisions sometimes in their lives. And to me, he came around and at least gave a partial confession of that. He thought that something, when he investigated why people were getting sick in Lyme disease, Lyme, Connecticut, he realized that some organism that he wouldn't name because it didn't have a name except for Swiss agent was making people sick. Maybe not just the spirochete.
Right. And I think the other thing, and this came up when I was working on Cold War stuff for my book as well. There's so many things there's so much short-sightedness, right? And you have, because of the Cold War, there was this race to get things done, to go, well, we can't let them do it, so we're going to do it first. And and then they tested in their own, was it Utah? Where were they dropping where was the flea rain? Where was it raining fleas?
That's Dugway, Utah,
Yes, Utah. They were raining
where I am right now.
fleas. It's like a horrible. I can't think of a worse image than raining fleas. Like, I have a real aversion to fleas Anyway, actually, fleas freak me out worse than ticks because they move so damn fast. But the idea of them raining on me is just horrific. So you realize that there's this idea of greater good, and then in the end there is no greater good, and you just realize you've done all. Many of the people realize they've done all of these things, thinking it was for something that was somehow better or superseded other things, and it didn't. A lot of people in the atom bomb project said similar kinds of things later on.
Yeah, I mean, one of the more moving parts in the book was when I was shown this file from Fort Detrick, which was the headquarters of the biological weapons program, and on top of it was a yellow sticky and his distinctive writing in red pen, because whenever something was important, he put it in red, juicy felt pen. And it says, "I always wondered why somebody didn't do something. And then I realized I was somebody." So it was like, open up this brown folder from the Cold War, and there were the experiments where he was trying to put plague in fleas so you could drop it from a bomblet. And he got special samples of extra deadly yellow fever from Trinidad, called the Trinidad agent, and he was trying to mass produce millions and millions of mosquitoes and put that in it. There was a trial of those mosquitoes. I don't think they had yellow fever in them, in a poor Black community in Georgia. That's where they decided to test it. And their military people dressed up as public health people and said, "Oh, do you have any mosquitoes in your house? Can you put this little trap there?"
Oh, geez.
So it was, Cold War was, the red threat, communists, we got to get them. And so even today, when I talk to sources from that era, they still won't talk about the secret experiments because it was this loyalty oath you take.
Yeah. Loyalty to stuff, but maybe not other people, right? Amanda says it seems more like more and more diseases are now recognized as recurring or reactivating. I recently got diagnosed with reactivating Epstein-Barr virus. I hadn't heard that. Had you heard that? Has that been part of any of the things you've looked into?
Right. Yeah. So right now I work half-time for a nonprofit that's working on hidden, persistent, invisible diseases, and ones that are worsened with climate change too, like ticks.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
And the thing I'm hearing from the Lyme disease doctors and people treating COVID is that a lot of these immune suppressing diseases, so we're talking about COVID and Lyme disease, they suppress your immune system and it reactivates your old infections.
Yeah.
Like Epstein-Barr, it's part of the herpes family. Herpes is notorious for hanging out in your neurological system. And then when you're down, it comes back.
We're back. Yeah. Great. Like a bad penny. Well, Stephanie goes, well, crap. Yeah. It's not good. Now, Jenna said the CDC has been a long-running enemy of Lyme's. Also, major clinics like Mayo, so unfortunate when they're supposed to be our support system. Less a question, more of a comment, but I think an interesting one.
Yeah. Mayo does have a bad reputation for Lyme disease. And I just think they're operating on old information from the CDC and the Infectious Diseases Society of America, who, again, puts all their money in the vaccine basket and are vehemently anti-antibiotic, because antibiotics are their line of defense against superbugs, and they feel like those antibiotics are becoming rarer and rarer, the ones that work. And so they're pretty much willing. With Lyme disease, it's a very sophisticated bacteria. It has these little genetic strands called plasmids.
Yay.
And Willy Burgdorfer has about 21 of them, can have up to 21 of them. A normal bacteria has 1 to 2 of them.
Oh.
And so it's a genetic thing that lets them mutate faster. Take advantage.
Great. Anthrogirl asked, when you said that, do you mean doxycycline is a 30% failure as well?
Doxycycline is not very good. There's a new study out of, I think, Hopkins that says doxycycline only slows down the replication of Lyme disease bacteria. It doesn't kill it.
Okay.
And the Infectious Diseases Society of America recommends only 2 to 4 weeks of doxycycline, and for one size fits all. and that doesn't cure it for a lot of people. These are,
Right.
oh no, I know the doxycycline study is from Tulane, the primate center. So they studied macaque monkeys, which are very close to us, and a dismal failure rate. And a lot of times the doxycycline gets rid of it for a couple of months, but then a year later it comes back. So
Right.
just like AIDS, it's such a wily organism. We need to have cocktails of antibiotics to get it in all forms.
Exactly, because it has. Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
for some reason they're not doing that. And so
I don't know why, because
we need treatment studies to show that. There has not been a Lyme treatment study for 27 years.
What? That doesn't make any sense. More people infected every year. Chloe Rogers was just mentioning about long COVID. Says trying to explain the difference in symptoms for long COVID that she's experienced is frustrating. How do I make you understand that the headaches, dizziness, and brain fog change all the time? And I think that was. This is why I think they go, oh, well, you're psychosomatic, right? You're making it up. Jennifer Pierce says, I have also been offered and tried talk therapy for symptoms. You might be shocked to know it did not work. Surprise.
Yeah. Talk therapy cannot get rid of a chronic inflammatory state.
Right.
I saw one scientist say people get long COVID who have a certain kind of personality.
Those ticks just really dig those people, right? Like they're just like, you guys.
That's when I want to drink heavily. It's just like just no one's developing tests to say, do you have long Lyme, long COVID? If we had that, then they'd believe it, because we're in the middle of a test-centric medical system.
Yeah. And of course.
Insurance will only reimburse that doctor if they can prove a certain condition requires a certain drug. So it's frustrating. Ugh.
I believe new studies have found that doctors are now prescribing peculiar book club chat community therapy.
I think that's the way to go,
because clearly it's work. I hope it's helping. There's a lot. There's a lot going on in this chat. There's a lot.
There is. I know. I'm having trouble keeping track of it. But that reminds me, we have arrived at roughly the half point in our show tonight. And frequently, we have Charming Disaster as our sort of house band in a way. But tonight we have someone new. And this band is called the Mary Lou's. They were introduced to us by Charming Disaster, the band. I think you guys will like them. We have two sort of different songs for you tonight. One is going to be right now in the middle of the show, and then they actually did a kind of freestyle peculiar song for us that we're going to close out the show with. So stay with us after the close, and there's going to be additional. So we're going to break. We have a moment. We're going to listen to some music. I'm going to come back. There are so many more comments and questions that I haven't gotten to yet that I have to catch up with. And when we come back from the music, we'll also do our announcements. So stay tuned.
Hello, Peculiars. We are the Mary Lou's. I am Razor D. Rockefeller, and this is Howl Daddy.
Hello, I am Jamie Lee Curtis.
That too. This next song is about falling in love with the leader of a gang of surfing werewolves.
You don't want to meet the werewolves that go bowling.
It's called Fang 10. There's terrifying howls coming over the shore. Ooh, ah, ooh. There's blood in the cries and they want more. Ooh, ah, ooh. It's midnight, a full moon over the sea. Something rising from the sand and it's coming for me. My heart was racing and I couldn't speak. What kind of horror's lurking at the edge of the beach? Everybody fang 10. Everybody fang 10. Everybody fang 10. Groovy ghoulies, spooky babes, vamps and tramps, let's catch some waves. Everybody fang 10. people made a run for their cars.
All the party people made a run for the cow.
It was a gang of werewolves, so they didn't get far.
It was a gang of my boys, they didn't get far.
Then this mean-haired dude came up over the sand. He was rough and rude with a killer tan. His swim trunks were all tattered and ripped. He smelled like wet fur, but boy, was he hip. Everybody fainting. Everybody fainting. Everybody fainting. Groovy ghoulies, spooky babes, vamps and tramps, let's catch some waves. Everybody fainting. He said, hey little mama, wanna hang with the big dogs?
Hey little mama, you wanna hang with the big dogs?
I'll show you how a lycanthrope works a surfboard.
I'll show you how a lycanthrope works a surfboard.
I'll take
You to places that you've never seen.
We'll be riding the tide while the squares all stream. You're fast and fine with a lust for blood. You got me barking at the moon.
Girl, I think I'm in love.
Everybody fainting. Everybody fainting. Everybody fainting. Groovy ghoulies, spooky babes, vamps and tramps, let's catch some waves. Everybody fainting.
You ever know when a werewolf goes and he sticks the sand between his toes? Well, he's got a lot of little werewolves to feed, and he's got to kill and take some of that money to buy all the things for the little pups. And you know, a little bit on the side just because.
We partied all night underneath the stars.
We partied all night underneath the stars.
Then he looked me in the eye as I held his paw.
Then I looked her in the eye as she held my paw.
He said, be my little she-wolf, it would be sublime. Every night's a full moon, now with you by my side. And from that day I was part of the pack, forever surfing the tide for a late night snack. Everybody fainting. Everybody fainting. Everybody fainting. Groovy ghoulies, spooky babes, vamps and tramps, let's catch some waves. Everybody fainting. Peculiar's watching us. Ooh, peculiar's watching us. Ooh, peculiar's watching us. Ooh, peculiar's on the TV.
So that's the Mary Lou's. And and at the end of our show, we'll close out with a little peculiar specific.
They kept going. They kept going. There's more to that, and you'll see it at the end of the show.
It's really cool. That's very cool.
I love Kristen's comment. Monster surf rock is a genre I didn't know I needed in my life. This makes me happy.
I've never heard of that genre before.
You'd be surprised the genres we actually encounter on this show. There was what was the philosophy freestyle rap? We had
Oh
that.
yeah. We've had freestyle rapping. Yeah.
A little shopping hour.
Not from me or Brandy. Not from me or Brandy.
Yeah, not from us. We weren't doing it. It wasn't us.
We've had punny jazz. That was me. Punny jazz was me.
Punny jazz was you. That's right. That's right. We did. Yes, that's right. The peculiar that we got a shout out in the freestyle as well, if I'm not mistaken. So getting back to some questions, I missed one from Sadie Simons. You guys, my mouth is just
Sadie.
having problems tonight. Sadie. I am flying to DC tomorrow I have to get up at 4:00 in the morning, and I'm flying to DC tomorrow to record things for Audible. And I'm like, great, I'm already having trouble talking. It's going to be fantastic. Sadie had a question earlier that I missed, and it said, did you find that the COVID conspiracy, so like the leaked from lab people, did they sort of try to get you roped in to talk about their cause, since there's a scenario that's sort of very similar in the book?
Well, I think they have their hands full with all the COVID, and I steer clear of COVID conspiracy theories. So I think anti-vaxxers tried to rope me in.
Oh, really?
I believe
Tell
in
me.
vaccines, but just not so many of them.
Right. So they tried to like pull you at like, we have one. We're gonna.
Yeah, because a lot of the things that went wrong with Lyme disease were because they put all their research dollars in the vaccine, and there was a vaccine that came out in the late 1990s, and then it was pulled from the market for who knows why. But one thing is, it wasn't an economically viable vaccine, and that you had to have 3 shots the first year, and then boosters. And
that reminds me of something. Though freely, I will take all the boosters that they have. I will, right here. But yeah, I see that. I've heard tell that they're working on another Lyme vaccine. Is that true? Or is that still going? Like they're still putting money towards that?
They're in the middle of the big clinical trial where they have to test thousands of people. So I would say I really want a good Lyme disease vaccine.
Sure.
And I really hope it works. But because I know so much about the mechanisms that the organism uses to evade the immune system, and there are just many ways it can, I just am a little bit scientifically skeptical about that, but we'll see.
Okay, this might be a scientifically ignorant question, but I gotta ask, as a dog owner, right? We give him medicine, every month for flea and tick. That I believe kill the ticks on bite, right? I believe that's how it's designed to work. Is that plausible in humans? Like, if we can't fight the disease, Lyme disease, can we fight the ticks?
Well, there's just a higher bar for what you put in humans versus dogs. And I
don't know why I like dogs more, really.
Yeah.
And what you put into children. So I don't know. I have heard that the ELISpot dog test for dogs works on humans too. It's a saliva test. I don't know why we can't use that.
Yeah, some of us put our dogs way, way above the humans.
I was just thinking that. I was like, I don't know. I put Darwin above most humans that I know.
Yeah.
That I shouldn't make light of it, but I do wonder why we're not allowed to use those things. So Anthro Girl had a question following the discussion we were having earlier about, are there like we talked about, they don't pick us for personality, but are ticks attracted to certain people or certain blood types more? And she was asking this question because of the idea that mosquitoes bite certain people more than others.
This is 100% true, Anthro Girl. I get mauled by mosquitoes. We could be sitting around a campfire. You'd have 2 mosquito bites. I'd have 30. It's unbelievable.
There are a new study out about mosquitoes, and they talk about, yes, there are super attractor people, a bad kind of attraction.
I've been called a super attractor, many times in my life.
Davey, that makes you the absolute unit.
You're not a chick magnet, you're a tick magnet.
Tick magnet. I love it.
But no one's done the study on ticks on that yet. We can't even get them to study treatments and new tests.
Right. This is a real tick aversion, apparently, amongst medical professionals, it seems. Like Amanda Johnson was saying, it's frustrating how often medical professionals want to deny that some groups of symptoms are the result of a disease, yet they want to make completely expected symptoms of menopause into a disease. Like there does seem to be, I would say, probably along gendered lines as well. Or maybe this is a better way of asking it. Amber Girl's like, why are people terrible? Well, covers it all.
I noted that Daniel Goldstein had a really good comment, and that is,
I've missed it.
He's had a couple.
It isn't that. So Lyme symptoms are hard to diagnose, especially in the absence of a test. And women women get diagnosed more with psychosomatic stuff.
Oh, there it is.
Because 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 of their hormone cycles, their immune systems are stronger and weaker, up and down and up and down. Also, women are more likely to go to a doctor and say, I feel bad. Men like to soldier on. It's just, I think, and not complain.
Yay culture. Yay culture for convincing us that's an idea.
Back from the caveman days where they were hunting for meat and they couldn't say, oh I got a hangnail.
Well, I think, but culture does that, right? Culture's like, you men buck up and carry on. I've heard that, like, real men don't cry kind of stuff. They don't want,
But the other thing is, I'm in this nonprofit now. It's Invisible International, and our job is to publish free continuing medical education about flea and tick-borne diseases. And I hang out with these doctors. They're the clinicians on the front line, and they're as frustrated as anybody. And it's just hard now because they're allowed 13 minutes at their institutions to do an intake.
Everything,
And insurance companies and the institutions are saying, you can't prescribe all those antibiotics. And they don't have good tests. They wish they did. So I have so much empathy for doctors, and they don't like the healthcare system as it is right now any more than the patients do.
As a matter of fact, they see it so up close, right? They see it so closely. Amanda Johnson asks, is Lyme becoming antibiotic resistant, or is it just the nature of these? You were saying it has, so many ways of morphing. Has it always been antibiotic resistant?
Someone did a study on that, and it isn't becoming more antibiotic resistant because it just has so many tricks up its sleeve. It's
always been that way.
Here's just a few of the tricks. So the tick bites you, and the saliva of the tick suppresses your immune system for a week. So these corkscrew like spirochetes have a week to get everywhere they get out of the bloodstream as soon as possible, and they dig down into tissue where there isn't much blood. So it might be your knee, tennis elbow where you have scar tissue, or knee with scar tissue, or in your brain, which is protected by the blood-brain barrier, and your immune system, big white cells can't get in there. Otherwise your head would explode. So it hides. Number one, it hides. Number two, once it gets to where it's going, it loses its spirochete form, and it becomes a very small, slow metabolizing cyst. And the antibiotics can't get to it. It's not reproducing. So most antibiotics work by disrupting the cell wall when it splits into two. Very simple bacteria just split into two. But there's the worst trick of Borrelia, and that is biofilms. It sort of has rave parties where all the spirochetes get into a ball and they coat themselves with the slime, and then they can exchange their little genetic material, the plasmids I was talking about.
Fun.
And so they can mutate faster than a normal bacteria. It just divides in two, and they're clones. This one's like that one. But when they get in the big balls, it's just like the genetic variations are amazing. It's like
great.
So
right.
It's like a spirochetal rave.
I wish we would have known that fact beforehand. That would have made a great peculiar sketch.
It would have been it would have been. I know. Actually, that makes me. I have a question that is actually Catherine's question is similar. It sounds like COVID in a lot of ways, and she's wondering, will the incidence of Lyme diagnosis drop as incidence of COVID diagnosis goes up? Since they present similarly, is it possible that you're going to get this overlap where you don't know your husband has both, but is it possible that some people will not know they've got both?
I think definitely. So when COVID started, everybody's at home. They're walking their dog outside more in the swishy grasses. And so a lot of them, I think, this is just conjecture, but a lot of them got Lyme and they didn't know it. It seemed like COVID, and they went in and got the COVID test, and it was negative. And then there are some overlaps with a chronic disease, whatever it is, which is chronic inflammation. A lot of the tick-borne diseases do make your vascular system inflamed, which means your veins get swollen. You're not getting good circulation in your brain. It creates all sorts of issues.
Anther Girl's like, human flea and tick collars for everyone. That seems like that would be helpful in a way. I mean, I know we have things that there's things you can put on your skin that supposedly helps, but it doesn't always help. I'm just catching up with comments. I was over on the other screen, and I see Susan Ballinger, my comment about men toughing it out. She's like, have you ever met a man with a cold, Brandy? You're right. You're right. You're
Well,
right.
I guess I have N equals 1 in my husband.
Anthro Girl was on that too.
Was she?
Yeah, my experience at the orthopedist office, men are much worse. So, I hate to do this to you, Brandy. I have to play producer, and I think we have some things to announce, don't we?
We do. We do.
Those things that go at the beginning of the show.
You're
Only
right,
55 minutes in.
Yes. Okay. But you guys you're with us and you're ready, right? So now they're ready. Yeah. I was just prepping them for the announcements. It's our first show. I had to kind of warm them up. Okay. Announcements. First of all, I want to remind you guys about the ways that we connect here on Peculiar Book Club. And let me explain how things have changed slightly. So before we did everything through Eventbrite, except Eventbrite is awful and terrible and annoying. And so we don't do that way anymore. Instead, the live links to the Facebook Live are on Facebook. You can get to it there. We have some people viewing from Facebook tonight. In fact, Daniel is, I think. But to get the live links to the YouTube shows, you really are better off being part of our newsletter. So if you go to our website, you will find all these ways of connecting with us. There's a Facebook page, a Facebook group. There's also the newsletter. If you sign up for the newsletter, you will hear about everything else. So it's a really, really great way to get in touch with us. The other thing is we have a YouTube channel, and I keep forgetting to promote the YouTube. You're on it technically right now. Like, people are going to see that you were talking here. But this YouTube channel you can subscribe to, and then you find out whenever videos post. So if for some reason you missed a show, you'll get the announcement, and you subscribing to the show actually helps us too. So don't forget about these ways to connect. It really helps us keep you in the loop. So number 2. Second one, there it is. We do have Patreons and VIPs. Some of our shows, not very many of them, almost all of them are free. Some of them are not. The next time we have a show on the 26th of January with Kat Warren, that is a VIP and Patreon only show. So if you want to see that one and you're not a Patreon or a VIP, please go ahead and sign up to our Patreon. There's several levels that you can sign up under. Kat Warren is great. She's the one who did What the Dog Knows. We're going to talk about cadaver dogs and stuff like finding teeth and bones. It's right up our alley, right? It's like graves, dogs. It couldn't be better. So please make sure that you support us. It was really cool. All right, next. We also still sell merch. I always forget to talk about that too. But like, you just want a giant squid on a t-shirt that says, I wouldn't know I was weird if it weren't for other people. We've got that, and you might want to buy it. So now, here's the exciting part. And actually, I think the one that ended up winning was Bug Bite. So in honor of your book, Kris, we create cocktails. Catherine, Kat, our drinks maven, our cocktail maven Kat, she is the one who creates these wonderful concoctions. This one is like a take on a snake bite, and it's very different though. It's a half pint of your favorite lager, half a pint of blackberry apple cider, 2 ounces of root beer, and it's really, really interesting and amazing and kind of refreshing. And I believe that what we won, the name that won is Bug Bite instead of Tick Tick Boom, which was also fun.
I love Tick Tick Boom.
So is it also a tick repellent? It looks like it might work that way.
It certainly should work that way, damn it. That would kind of be awesome. Also, just reminding all of you, we have a Discord. We're not actually doing Discord tonight, but we will be doing Discord in the future, because in the future, we're going to have some authors that are going to join us on the Discord. We just didn't quite get it rolling yet. But stay tuned for that. And I think that's it. Is that it, Davey?
Oh, no, that's not it.
No,
There is more content coming your way, Peculiars. We told you about it back in December. We are launching the Peculiar Movie Club, which will be a movie that ties in via theme to a book.
Sort of.
So this one is in honor of Kris's book, Bitten. We are doing a zombie movie 28 days later. I'm bringing in...
I love that film. I love it.
Oh, excellent. Would you say that the themes in Bitten might overlap with a zombie film a little bit?
Yeah, definitely.
It's there. I see it.
They do refer to them in the movie as the infected. I'll give you a little tease in where we're going with this. So I'm bringing in my old podcasting partner. We used to do a movie podcast together called the No Meh Movies Podcast, which is still out there, still available if you want to listen to me and Darren Cross break down some crazy meh movies. But now we're turning our focus. We're turning our focus. So the movie will always relate to one of the books that month. So this will drop usually the week in between our shows. So January 19th, early in the morning, this will drop. And for our YouTubers, this is for our podcasters. Everyone, all of you who listen via podcast, you're all set. This is just going to show up in your feed.
Magically.
For all of our YouTubers, you got to go find us on any podcasting app. Anchor, Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify.
We're on Spotify.
We're there. We're all over.
We're there.
It, so.
We're there. Mercedes Simmons is like, movie club, movie club, movie club.
Yeah. This one might be a little hard to find. If you might have to rent this one, maybe, or something like that. I'm going to try to find ones that are streaming on some streaming service, so it's a little bit easy to watch, and then you can enjoy our very, very detailed conversation about the movie and the themes.
You know, I think romance in a tick world, you never know where one might be. There's lots of places that are hard to reach. I'd like to check you for ticks.
I love the opening scene where there's no one in London.
And it's crazy how they filmed it too. We get into the details of that. I mean,
that's awesome.
Oh,
so you guys, please, also on our website, you have a way of getting to our podcast. So please listen to our podcast. You can subscribe to that too. Honestly, you can subscribe to us everywhere. It's kind of magical. I have a Substack, and on the Substack, you get previews of the books that are coming up. So I previewed Kris's book. I just recently previewed The Smell of Death, talking about cadaver dogs. That's right up my street anyway. So please don't miss out these other opportunities to get weird with us. Speaking of getting weird, are you ready for the quiz?
I think we're ready for our first quiz of the year. Kris, are you ready?
First quiz.
I'm ready.
I did give her a little warning.
So is the quiz only for me or for the commenters too?
Well, you are the official answerer of the quiz, but they're going to help you out. The Peculiars will help you out, so pay attention to the chat. And, you know, I had a hard time this week because your book, there's not many happy threads to pull from your book. But I was thinking about bugs, and, you know, bugs aren't all bad. There are some happy bugs in pop culture. In fact, there's a ton of them. So the quiz this week is called A Bug's Life. And I'm going to ask you about some pop culture bugs, and we'll see what you can come up with, what the Peculiars know. So, of course, I had to start with the tick. I had to start with the superhero, the tick.
I love this.
The parody superhero, the Tick, has many odd quirks, including his nonsensical battle cry. And I'll try to my best battle cry for you. Fork! Is it B, spoon? Or is it C, ladle? What do you think the Tick?
I know the answer to this one, and so does Kristen and Stephanie. But you're the official answer.
I don't know. Fork sounds best, but I didn't watch the movie The Tick.
It was a TV show with Patrick Warburton. Yeah, it's been all over. It started as a comic book to promote a comic shop, like a local comic shop. So
yes, indeed. It does. All right. I love the Tick. He's so crazy dumb. I love it. Okay.
The Peculiars say it's spoon. Why spoon?
It is a nonsensical battle cry.
There's no reason. There's no reason for anything that happens. One of his enemies is Chairface, which is a man whose head is a chair. There's no reason for anything to happen in this comic.
All right. Final answer from Kris. What do you think? A, B, or C?
Well, I thought it was fork, but the peanut gallery says spoon.
The answer is spoon. Crazy dumb is the best. Kristen says crazy dumb is the best description of this character. Yes,
I know. I love this character so much.
We're moving on to a different genre here. We're moving on. This is a classic character. You, of course, can't talk bugs without Jiminy Cricket.
That's
true.
You
mostly remember Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio, but as an iconic Disney character, he also starred in Mickey's Christmas Carol as A, the Ghost of Christmas Past, B, the Ghost of Christmas Future, or C, Tiny Tim.
I never saw this one.
What do you think they would have cast Jiminy Cricket as in Mickey's
I have ideas.
I think it's A, past.
She's going the Ghost of Christmas Past. Peculiars in the chat here. They're a few seconds behind us, you know, internet delays and stuff like that. So we'll give them a second to catch up.
I think Facebook is a few seconds behind too. That's one of the downsides is that they're always just 7 seconds off.
Boy, nobody's guessing this one.
Nobody's guessing. All right.
There we go.
I don't
Kristen's
know.
in on it.
Kristen says A. I don't know. It feels like it should be Tiny Tim, but I never saw it, so I don't know. Stephanie says A.
Zuzu Sunshine.
She's a spoon.
The answer is, and Kris guessed A. The answer is yes, the ghost of Christmas past.
But
Yes.
he's small. It seems like he should have been Tiny Tim.
He is. They make a joke about that in the movie, apparently. But he is Disney's conscience, right? He plays Pinocchio's conscience, so that's why he's in the role of the ghost of Christmas past.
Got it.
All right, your final question and the peculiar quiz. Flick from A Bug's Life is an ant who's also an inventor. The first invention in the movie we see is A, seed counting machine, B, a steam-powered plow, or C, an automatic grain harvester. Of course, the quiz was called A Bug's Life. I couldn't leave out Flick.
Right. Flick only has 4 legs, and has always bothered me. Who pulled off his other 2?
But same with Jiminy Cricket, right?
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. I mean, I get that from the tick, because of course he makes no sense. But all right, so Stephanie says C.
I'm thinking it's C too, because there's a certain kind of seed carrying ant, and he would want more grain.
Yeah, he would.
All right, the final answer is C. You are correct. It is an automatic grain harvester.
Hey, a little bit behind the hand here, but everybody actually went with that one, and I did not know. I was like, seed counting? I don't know. I even saw that movie.
It was really hard to come up with the fake answers for this one. I stared at the screen for a while, like what would be the
really good questions. They're super hard.
I know, they always are. The only time he was ever thwarted, and Davey was thwarted hard, was when we did the Mooter Museum, because he asked questions about Philadelphia and
some Philly girls.
From Philly girls. We didn't actually get a word in edgewise the rest of the show. It was just comments about Philadelphia.
I try not to make it too hard, but yeah, I kind of am all over the place sometimes with the quizzes. The Peculiars were on it though. They were on it. Yeah, trust in the Peculiars. They'll never lead you astray.
Yes, I'm pretty sure there was no actual scientific reasoning behind that movie's decision. Now, you're probably right. What bothered me about that though is the grasshoppers or locusts or whatever they were, they had all the legs. But the ants only had 4 legs. And I was like, so either some mean kid came along and ripped off the 2 legs of all the ants in the colony, or I was distressed by that. The queen wasn't fat enough either. Though the show that weirds me out the most is Rango, where you've got lizards and rabbits and bugs, and they're all the same size, and it drives me nuts. Sorry, tangent. I'm autistic. It's not my fault.
Who knows? Maybe we'll get to one of those movies on the Peculiar Movie Club one day.
Oh, I'll have to think about that one. So we are actually a little over time. We're at the end of our show. However, I just want to say I have really enjoyed having on the show. I feel like we barely even dipped our toe in the waters of conspiracy that we could talk about when it comes to governments doing experiments.
I do talk about the bat bomb.
The bat bomb.
There's a book about it even. So there was this crazy dentist named, do we have time for this?
Yes, go.
Bat-bomb,
Go,
His
we're
name
ready.
was
Bat-bomb.
Doc Adams. And after Pearl Harbor happened, he got really patriotic and he says, we need something to kill those Japs. So he had this idea where you glue an inflammatory device on the chest.
Like, as in like making fire device.
It explodes.
Got it.
Time device that explodes. The bat bomb. Yeah, there it is.
What?
So they have this bomb that holds 1,000 bats in 23 trays. They look like ice cube trays, and they take the bats in them and they put them in the refrigerator and they go into hibernation. Then they load it into this big bomb. Looks like the Manhattan Project bomb, and they drop it out of a plane at a certain altitude. It explodes. And the bats wake up because they realize they're falling from the sky. And
I don't think this is part of it.
And then they go into the rafters of Japanese houses, which are largely wooden rice paper. And then in 30 minutes, they explode. The bat gives their life to create a firebomb in a Japanese village. So that was the theory. So they tested it in New Mexico, and then it accidentally burned half the base down, so that they decided it wasn't a good idea.
There's
And
so much going on here.
So
I
anyways,
apologize to our audio listeners. We were pulling up photos of it the whole time. So Google it. Google image search.
Good.
bat bomb. Yeah. So
I have so many questions. I mean, first of all, yes, it's horrible and like I hate this and did this to the poor bats, but also I have so many questions. Like what? Like if they're in hibernate, I have a lot of questions, but also did the bats conspire to blow up the base? I just wonder, because I feel like that would be correct. That'd be the bats being like, no way are we taking part in this. We're going to burn this base down.
Well, they glued the bomb and then there was a little wire. And when the bats woke up and flew off, the wire pulled off. And then that set the timer on their bomb. It's an incendiary device. There was napalm in it. That was what worked the best. So anyways,
no.
I just was saving that because when people, there's still some people that say we didn't weaponize ticks. And so I just say, well, there were even weirder ideas.
There were even weirder ideas.
There was a dolphin bomb. There was the conch shell.
There was a dolphin bomb. Of course there was a dolphin bomb.
And there
oh my
was
gosh.
a feather bomb.
When histoplasmic pneumonia was right there. Pretty sure that was on Mysteries at the Museum. I know so many weird things and I didn't know that. And like you've given me such a gift now, Kris. I didn't know about the bat bomb and I feel so moved. This almost never happened.
That was the most peculiar bomb, and I thought your audience needs to know about the bat bomb.
Yeah.
We needed to know about that. There was no squid bomb, I guess, because I feel like that would have been the only thing to trump the bat bomb.
The conch
They
shell
could have carried
bomb.
8 bombs at the
Conch shell bomb. Well, there is that.
They were trying to assassinate Fidel Castro, and he liked to
Conch shell.
scuba dive. So they thought, well, can we put a bomb inside of a beautiful conch shell and put it where he usually dives, and when he picks it up,
that's crazy.
This is like Looney Tunes esque.
It is Looney Tunes level. It's like Wile E. Coyote's ideas for things.
So now
Amanda Johnson.
weaponized ticks sounds like not a big
Yeah, like rain of fleas. What's that? Amanda Johnson says we need a disease that activates when these people's brains come up with these ideas.
Kris, I have to ask. I have to slide this in. I got to come for some closure on the book because you mentioned twice in the book that people warned you, including I think your dad, to be careful that these are the kind of books that get people killed. Are you safe? And are you wanted by the CIA right now?
Yeah, that's true. We should know this. Like because the peculiars will come to your defense.
I'm sure I'm on some NSA screening thing. I was talking to an editor and I mentioned General Flynn and Deep State and our Zoom got disconnected. So I was like,
if I had a way of doing a little like cracked screen right now, I totally would, but I can't.
So let me say, during that part of the Cold War where it was the Manchurian Candidate and Sid Gottlieb, I don't know if you've had anybody on about Sid Gottlieb. He was the evil mad scientist in the CIA. Who was at Fort Detrick too. So he's the one that did the mind control experiments with the LSD.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So around that time, the people in the bioweapons program, there were some experiments overseas that gave the foot soldiers and the officers a crisis of conscience. And after that, a lot of those scientists, the ones with loose lips, would fall out of windows of tall buildings. So anyways, there's just like at least about 10 or so mysterious deaths and suicides. Like, for example, when they were interrogating the Japanese after World War II for their human experimentation using insects and horrible germs and frostbite, there were the people that translated that. A couple of those people ended up in hotel rooms with suicides. So anyways, my dad is from that generation, and some of my sources who were in the intelligence world were warning me to watch your back.
That's terrifying.
Well, we have your back.
We have your back. We have a squid mascot. There's 8 arms defending you right now.
So much safer now.
It is an amazing book. For any of you who have not yet purchased it, if you're in the UK, our UK bookshop is Fox Lane Books, and they have signed copies. And what's on the signature card?
A squid.
Yes, it's so cool. So just for us. So you can buy that at Foxline Books. If you are in the US, our bookstore here is Loganberry Books, and they also have this signature, the cool signature cards. And I kept a few for myself. So if you run out and you need one, I've got them. It's amazing. Don't miss this book. There's so much more going on than we could possibly talk about tonight. It was really, really awesome.
Yeah, I feel like we barely got into the spy angle. And
I know there was all this other stuff. This show is never long enough.
The mating dance of the red mites. That was my favorite.
That was pretty great. I feel like there's just so many things so many band names in this book. Like Mating Dance of the Red Mites. That's just right there. That ought to be a band name, and it's really great. And the squid is our murder squad. There we go. Murder squid. We will defend you, everyone says. We really appreciated having you on. We'd love to have you back again. We do love a repeat. And so we hope that you will join us again if you are writing another book in the future. I think you are.
Yeah, it's right up your alley. The next book is right up your alley. Very,
very good. It was a fascinating talk, and it was a fascinating read. I'm so glad that we read it, says Kristen Meston. So again, please buy the book if you haven't already. We have the nameplates. We're glad you're here. Welcome to our first show of the season. What an amazing, fun, crazy, peculiar season we have for you at a place where, if you're weird, you're family.
And music by the Mary Lou's.
You know,
I don't.
Give me two chords. Just two chords. Let's do a peculiar song on the spot. You like, that you read, and that you think, and maybe a little drink that you have that's not quite the same as your friend or your parents or, you know, your significant other or others, but you're peculiar in your own way, and that's why we like you. That's why we like you, and that's what makes you unique. So keep being peculiar in your own way, in the way that you like, in the way that you like, in the way that makes you happy. Be peculiar in your own way, in the way that you like. You like, so keep being peculiar in a way that you like. God, there's a song. It's a something. Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. I ain't gonna feed it, so take it or leave it.
I ain't gonna need it, so take it or leave it.
Goodbye.
You got the blue bottle blues when you wake up in the night. Don't make a big mistake, 'cause you can never make it right. When you reach out for the vial, feel the ridges in the glass. It's a matter of survival, baby, better watch your back. There is no antidote. There is no antidote. There is no antidote.